From the hill country of Texas, this is One Radio Network. And a very pleasant good evening to you. This is June 4th, 2009, and this is Patrick Timpone. And you've got OneRadioNetwork.com, OneRadioNetwork.com. And we certainly apologize for all the challenges you've been having getting on the website the past 3 or 4 days. And when the website croaked and threw up and spit up, we immediately hired a new server, big spanking new baby, and we've been trying to get that thing operational for the last couple of days. So we're getting there. But all the shows, are, of course, will be archived, and so you're going to get your fill of Clif High. And Clif is known as the time monk among circles who listen and read George Ure every morning on urbansurvival.com. And Clif's website is halfpasthuman.com. Mr. High, how are you?
Doing fine, sir. And how about yourself?
I'm doing wonderful. Nice to talk to you.
It's been a while, yeah.
Yeah, and you're still time monkeying every day, right?
Yes, indeed. We start the next interpretation phase here in a few days. We're doing data processing at the moment. So.
Okay, it's been a long time since we've talked. Give folks a short story. Like you meet a cute girl in the bar, and she says, "What do you do?"
Well, usually I would say, "Well, I'm married."
Oh, yeah, okay. Well, that's okay.
but I understand what
that's
you're saying.
That's not a good analogy. But yeah, explain to folks what this whole thing about linguistics is about and what you do.
Right. Well, I'm operating under the theory that all humans are psychic to some degree, whether they know it or not, and that psychicness leaks out in their particular choice of words around daily conversations. At an unconscious level, and I go on out with my software programs and scoop up all these daily conversations and sift through for archetypes that seem to presay the future to a greater or lesser degree. Sometimes we're fairly accurate, right down to details, and other times we just get a general sense of how things are going to develop and have the headline, if you will, but none of the details that you might find in the story. However, occasionally, as I say, it's shocking how accurate it can be.
Yeah,
such as the Chinese quake, last year and that kind of thing.
You, of course, have heard of the idea of like NLP, conscious languaging, the Bruce Lipton stuff, and
sure.
And all that. And we all understand at a basic level, if we were brought up in the 60s, that we create our own reality. So it is the idea that you go by that people, let's see, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but they like kind of intuitively, at a deep level, they kind of know what's up, even if they can't verbalize it, but then it comes out in the way that they talk, even if it's on a gardening forum.
Sure, or they're discussing, grilling or something, and they have a particular choice of words, and one word is more archetypical than another. So for whatever reason, they drop out of their usual lexicon and use a word that maybe they haven't used in, weeks or months or maybe even years. And it's those little prompts from universe that bring those words out, and mostly as humans we're totally unaware of it, and it just kind of dribbles out of our fingers onto our keyboards and into the internet, and I go sifting for it because I am aware of it. But if you really were a sensitive individual, you could probably pick up on it in real time.
And archetypical, what does that mean exactly? Archetypical.
Archetypes are defined as aggregations of, in our viewpoint, are aggregations of linguistics around core human concepts that are not cultural specific. So in other words, family pretty much means the same thing to a person in the wilds of the Amazon as in Sweden, Denmark, or here.
I see.
So family is an archetype. Make sense?
Yes. And yeah. Family would be an archetype, or
trading currency is an archetype, or the planet is an archetype. We all have a relationship to the planet, and weather, which is another archetype, and it's a subset of the planet, and it just drills down into incredible complexity.
Oh, well, how do you know what kind of things to fish for? I mean, it's not like you just don't throw bait into a water. You have to tell your computers what to look for, don't you?
Yes, I tell them what to look for, and then I allow a certain amount of freedom in the software to find and pursue related links. And from those related links, we chew up and get more data, which then feeds back. The programming language I'm using is a very odd one in the sense that it allows itself to recompile on the fly, to learn on the fly, and proceed with new instruction sets that it didn't exist with at the time that you set it off. And so this is Prolog, and it's a pure Prolog, and that's programming and logic. But it's a artificial intelligence language. I'm not using it for the typical artificial intelligence purposes, as in academia. I'm just making it smart enough to be able to say, well, it might go to a web page and there might be 24 links, and if it pursued the first 3 of those links down 256 layers and found nothing, it would be smart enough to not necessarily go that far on the following links, and thus would be able to save itself a little time. Sort of makes sense?
Yeah. So when you pick up a particular incident is going to happen, let's say a big quake, let's just make something up, a big quake in Los Angeles, for example.
Okay.
And then you forecast that this is going to happen, and then let's say it doesn't happen. As you would step back, why would that be? Why would you get all this linguistics of people intuitively kind of knowing it's going to happen, but then it not happen?
Well, here's a real good example. Let's take a real, actually happened to us example.
All right.
We had a series of linguistics that said, and basically we operate on the theory that the language will appear, and we may be misinterpreting what that language will be associated with. So again, we're operating on the theory that we have sort of like a cloudy window, and somebody's showing us a newspaper on the other side of it, and we can occasionally get the headlines and stuff. So we see the words that are appearing, and then we try and figure out with our rational minds what could cause those words to appear. So an actual example of this that occurred was the twin earthquakes that we had forecast for early December of last year, 2008.
Right.
Okay, twin quakes. And we had a lot of information, or a lot of linguistics about earthquakes exactly. Well, curiously, we did not have any very large earthquakes within the North America area, but we did have twin earthquakes in South America at the same time that a lot of the linguistics were showing up around the Madoff case, which was a financial earthquake. So the linguistics actually did appear, and we had those accurately forecast, I think down to about 68% of the linguistics that showed up in the newspapers relative to the Madoff financial scandal were actually predicted, but we had them over in the twin earthquakes area because we couldn't disassociate it, and they both happened at the same time.
Wow.
2 twin earthquakes in Latin America that had very low media presence, but enough that they were in the media at the same time as all this other earthquake language, but it was relating to the Madoff financial scandal, and thus we misinterpreted it and saw all the languages relating to the twin earthquakes.
So did you see the terms earthquake come out like in the Wall Street Journal or something like that, where a financial earthquake happened today? Is it that concise?
It's that kind of thing, exactly. And we can go back after the fact and look at the actual articles that are written, run on the software we have, and extract language from it that we can then match up with our forecast and say, aha, here's where those linguistics came from. And it's the interpretation part, months in advance, where you just see headline, twin earthquakes, and more earthquakes and damage and loss of money. Well, you think it's all going to be, all the loss of money is going to be related to the earthquakes instead of a financial earthquake.
Yeah. So you, wow, that's pretty interesting. So this is not necessarily location specific unless, how does that work?
Well, we actually do get locations sometimes, but usually because we're dealing in the internet, first thing, the internet is filled with numbers, and it's also filled with geographic references, where someone might say, I was down, in Georgia with Aunt May for a while,
right,
or I was over in Savannah, etc. So there's constantly all of these geographic references. So we throw all those away, and we throw away all numbers, because there's so many repetitious incidents of numbers, and while numbers themselves are archetypical, we can never sort them out just because there's so many on the internet. So what we look for are things that come up linguistically where numbers might be spelled out, so to speak, and those are more archetypical than the actual numeral. So sometimes we get indications that, say, an earthquake is going to hit at 39-degree latitude. And we think, okay, well, hey, we're going to get a big earthquake, and here it is, it's going to be 39-degree latitude. And we think, well, it could be San Diego or wherever that happens to be. But in fact, it ends up being Pakistan or some other point on that same latitude. So our geographic references, while specific, are broad usually in that sense.
Now,
and we can misinterpret, too. We had a forecast for the 6.3 earthquake that struck Hawaii. We had the 6.3 number absolutely accurate, but we had previous in our associations had it picked it was associated with the word 50. Well, we